MSP Summit, September 2025 by Channel Partners in Orlando. Great event, big event, really enjoyed it. Had 13 great conversations with vendors and MSPs. Really well attended, well organized. I love working with Bob and the team there. The first interview was with Greg Talone from Cloud IBR. Really enjoyed it. Really interesting man. I look forward to talking with Greg some more and maybe even playing some golf. Logan, of course, from Vendasta. Fascinating platform that helps MSPs. They're in another area. They're moving towards, they want to move towards MSPs to see how they can help them grow. Russ Reeder. Oh my goodness. Great MSP, XTM. Really enjoyed talking to Russ. I'm always fascinated with the growth of those large kind of master MSPs. They are master MSPs. William Rubio, of course, from Call Tower. Love working with Call Tower. He's the CRO there. They're offering a lot of areas that really MSPs need to look to expand in. Great conversation with William. Scott, of course, Scott Furman from a very great conversation. He's head of operations there, and really interesting take on what he does and how he helps MSPs, how his firm helps MSPs. Jeff Hill from Stellar Cyber. Really like talking to Jeff. He's Bulldog. He's really interesting insights. Conversation went by really quickly. Great conversation with Jeff. Ryan Stoner, who I have known for a long time. He's now with Judy Security, doing really great things, helping MSPs. Zan Stevenson. Very interesting. We opened the conversation up with just finance and where he thought he was lacking, and really dove into it and can help people in it. Has great insight right all over, to what he does now in networking and helping MSPs. Niels was great too. He loves fixing things. He buys broken things and fixes them. Just has an engineering mind, and how Keep It can help MSPs grow and help protect their clients. Great conversation with Neil. Paul, of course, Mander from Optory. Great conversation with Paul. The whole area, social engineering. I knew very little about this. I know a little bit more, but he's here to help MSPs. Jackie Robinson, of course, from, Anunta, right? From Connecticut, the state that I'm from. Great insight on how to help MSPs with their great desktop as a service. Michelle Raguso McBain, my longtime friend, been asking her to be on the podcast for years. She's now with a company called Red Access, doing great things there. Always love talking to Michelle. Great insight, great spirit, great energy. I just can't say enough great things about Michelle. And then lastly, of course, Kael Eisenberg, great company from Vircom. We're doing a lot of work with Vircom. Kael's got great insight. I've known Kael for 5 or 6 years now. We kind of touched base a while ago, but came back now. We have a lot of friends in common. We start off with a very interesting subject of Barbershop Quartets. He's a 2025 champion, and bring it right into helping MSPs with security and email security and other great services Vircom has. Great time there at the MSP Summit. Thanks so much. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. I found myself at 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. I took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People ask me, how'd you do it? What's the secret? I need to lose weight. How'd you do it? How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually asked them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. So, 2025 champ?
So there was a 2025 champ, which was Lemon Squeezy. And I mean, the names are all over the place. But the last time I was actually in Orlando was in 2018, where I attended the 2018 International Barbershop Quartet Championships, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Yeah. That year, After Hours won.
And is it 5-part harmony, 4-part?
4-part. Yeah, it's all 4-part. So, I mean, this all started... I heard a Barbershop Quartet rendition of the Beach Boys' God Only Knows. And I then started looking into other songs, like pop culture songs or more current songs that have like a barbershop version or rendition of it, right? And next thing you know, I'm down a rabbit hole on YouTube, and then I realized there's a whole scene for it, and there's, you know, different districts across the US where they compete, and then those winners from the districts go, you know, to nationals, and then there's like the midwinter classics, and next thing you know, there's championships.
Wow.
And so finally I bit the bullet and decided to just go to one of the conventions. Little did I know at the time that the conventions are a little bit more insider conventions in that there's not generally fans that go. And so when I showed up, everyone would ask me, and I brought a friend and my father actually, and people would ask us, like, what quartet are we with? And we said, no, we're just here as fans.
Right.
And they didn't... A couple of the quartets, a bunch of older gentlemen, didn't necessarily know that all their videos were on YouTube and that they had, you know, built at a minimum a fan out of me.
Wow.
And so, yeah, interesting little passion I've found. I'm not sure what it is about it. I'm a big music fan anyway, like musicals, I mean, all types of music. But this one, there's just something about their passion for it and how this little tight-knit community is like seemingly grown and grown. And so when like the championships travel. So this year they were in Denver. I mean, I was here years ago in Orlando. But yeah, it's been an interesting past 7 years to like dive into this.
The difference between a barbershop quartet and a cappella group is?
So I feel like a cappella groups more lean into their voices are the instruments, and that you've got someone like, you know, pretending to be a guitar sound or a horn sound. And I think there's less of a restriction on the quantity of people you can have in it. So there's a couple movies from like decades ago called Pitch Perfect, where that's more, I think that's more a cappella groups, because like their voices are more trying to model the instruments, where I would delineate or differentiate the others as like 4-part like singing harmonies. But
the quartet is just the song itself.
It's just the song itself. And certainly, you know, they're making sounds with their voices that are more than just words. But it definitely, when you hear an a cappella group, like someone's trying to be drums, which is not necessarily what you're always seeing in barbershop.
Doing a beatbox.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone's doing a beatbox. Maybe someone's trying to do a horn. Whereas it's a little bit more traditional, perhaps, where you're not trying to like, you know, emulate even like electronic instruments or synthesizers, things like that. So yeah, it's been fun.
So did barbershops, why the name barbershop? Why is it related?
Oh, you know, I wish I knew that. And I feel like I've looked this up at some point. You know, in my mind, it goes back to like the 40s or 50s, where they're wearing their pinstripe suits. And I don't know if the pinstripes came from like the kind of rotating things you'd see at barbershops, but I don't think it started because they were singing inside them.
Are they barbers?
I don't think they were barbers either, you know?
I don't know why I know this, Kael, but that stripe thing you see, the red signifies blood, because they used to put leeches on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I don't know why I know that, and I could be wrong, but I think that's why there's red.
I mean, I think barbers over the years have done a lot of things. I think in like the early 1800s, when the first settlers came to the United States, barbers were also dentists,
right?
And blacksmiths were also dentists, and so you know, more investigation required to see what the actual origin of the term is. I only got as far as the music.
Yeah. And if you get a song, do they have it available in Barbershop Quartet?
So yeah, well, so there are probably some of the more well-known people within each of the groups are arrangers also. And that's usually the groups that do the best, is because they're coming out with original arrangements. Barbershop has a lot of like kind of standards, and like similar like jazz standard, right? There's barbershop standards. And so a lot of earlier groups, when they're just getting started, they're playing other people's arrangements. But then if you get someone who's genuinely musical and understands kind of the movements of the voicings, they then can arrange more modern music, which is, I think, the thing that caught my eye originally was just almost the creativity of it, to take like a Queen song, like Somebody to Love, and turn that into a full 3, 4, 5 minute barbershop song.
Queen would be good for, I mean, they're very kind of Broadway.
And that was the same thing with like the Beach Boys. It's like God Only Knows is almost, it's like it's all harmony and chorus anyway. And so it all just sounds right. So yeah.
Last time I saw a bar, it was here at Disney. They have them like walking around with me.
Don't tell me that, because now I have to go to Disney. I was going to go to maybe Universal tonight, but if they've got quartets going around, then I mean, that sounds exactly right. It fits the scene.
Right. No microphones.
No.
4 guys there. And usually guys, by the way. Are the females? Is a good question.
So that's actually a very good question. So it had been a fairly close-knit male community thing up until actually a couple years ago. And this is a big like insider baseball thing in barbershop, is that only more recently have they started allowing women to participate. And now they've basically taken gender out of it. Good. And so now, regardless of gender, you can participate. And I don't know about the years past, but this year there was a group called GQ, which is for women, and they had a fantastic rendition of Celine Dion's I'm blanking on it. It'll come to me at some point, but they did a Celine Dion song, and it was one of the best things I've seen. And I think they took 5th this year. So stay tuned for more either women only groups or more diverse groups starting to take the main stage.
So Kael, we're here at MSP Summit, Orlando. What are some of your goals this week?
So, great question. Goals this week. This is Vircom and our kind of first big year going to events. For a company that's been around for 30 years to only now start going to events kind of 1 year. We had started, I think our first one was in November of last year, which was an event down here in Florida. No, actually, it was GrowCon. So it was GrowCon, and so that was one that we had started with. But since then, we've now done a couple more. So we were at the MSP Summit in Vegas. There was one in Nashville we were just in. So we're starting to kind of get our feet wet with conferences. And, it's a lot of unknowns. One, just the amount of investment it takes to go, especially when you're an exhibitor. Our goals for us, of course, there's pieces of generating an ROI on it and everything. But ultimately, it's just to get our name out there. We're a company that started as a software developer, as an OEM. We used to build our own email products. And so, we mostly worked with like ISPs and telcos back in like the late 90s and early 2000s. Now our business has pivoted to more of a distribution model. So we're kind of partnering with market leading vendors and distributing and enhancing their solutions to MSPs. And so, what better way to just get in front of and meet a lot of the MSPs that are, in the market, and that's by going to events. And so really for us, I think our main goals are, let's just meet as many people as we can. Let's keep it consistent, because I think especially at these types of events, having your logo up, having people see you at an exhibit in Vegas and then seeing you again in Tennessee and then seeing you again, you start recognizing people. You start, even if you have a very simple conversation with someone 6 months ago, seeing them again, you can continue the conversation. And so for us, it's just continue to put our name out there, continue to participate in some of these networking events, and ultimately, meet partners who otherwise would have never heard of us, right? We're based in Canada. We're doing much better at it in the last several years, kind of marketing ourselves and marketing our brand, but still there's, a lot of catch up that we're doing to, get ourselves out there and make ourselves known.
How does Vircom help MSP?
So we have always been traditionally focused on email security. I mean, we used to build mail servers and BBS servers back in the day, but I mean, where that business has gone is transitioned to the cloud. And so we've now partnered with companies like Proofpoint, companies like Redsift, and we distribute their, Proofpoint Essentials or their Redsift product, which handles email authentication. So things like SPF, DMARC, SPF flattening, to MSPs. And, how we help them is there aren't many, if any, other distributors that kind of behave in a way that we do, in that we have a full development team that looks at these products. They're great products, but there's still, sometimes these products aren't necessarily built for MSPs, right? They may have been originally small business focused or end customer focused and may not have, the right things an MSP needs in their toolkit to manage multiple clients, to deploy changes across multiple clients. And so where our dev team has really found a lot of opportunity is in enhancing these products. We sell products that ultimately you can buy from several other folks here. And, our message to partners is, hey, you could buy them from us also. And at the same time, you're getting a lot of improvements that, we're using APIs, some of our own browser automations, some of our own just expertise for being around for 30 years to make these products a little bit better than you can get from other folks, right? And then it's our value add. So we don't charge partners anything for that. We don't charge anything extra for our support or anything like that. So it's we like to present ourselves as, hey, get a better version of products you may already be using today at no extra price. And so the other thing I think where we help MSPs is we go deep, not wide, right? So if we're partnering with a company, we've spent probably a year or so evaluating every product in the industry in that marketplace to try to figure out who do we want to partner with. I don't want to sell 4 different email security products. I'd rather take one and build upon it, improve upon it. I want to take one DMARC solution, build upon it, improve upon it, as opposed to, running the risk of, having our support team need to manage multiple of the same product, right? Because every product has their intricacies. You have to then escalate to several different vendors. And so the better we can be with one, and the more we can build as an ecosystem of those products. So where I'm going with this is kind of vetting, right? Is it takes MSPs a lot of time ultimately to choose what product do I want to give to my customers? What product do I trust to sell to my clients? And that's where we, hope they rely on us, that we've done our diligence. And if we're partnering with someone, we've taken the time, and hopefully that saves them from having to do it. Certainly they'll want to test it for their own stuff, but we've done a lot of that legwork for them to hopefully give them the confidence that that's what they, want to be using ultimately.
When an MSP is looking for a great partner or vendor to help with email security, what questions should they be asking?
When they want to partner?
If they're looking for others, if they're trying to choose who to partner with, what questions should they be asking?
Yeah, so I mean, there's kind of 2 different tracks you could look at that in. One is from a product perspective, right? 2 is the distribution perspective, right? I think from the product side, I mean, it kind of depends on the product, but there's a whole list of questions. But ultimately, one, is it a company that has a solid reputation? Is it a company that has, a product that is kind of constantly being developed and improved upon? That was a big reason why we partnered with Proofpoint, is, the amount of investment they have in the technology. I mean, just recently they announced $1 billion acquisition of Hornet Security, right? And so they, and Proofpoint has a very good approach of, if it's not technology they own, they'll build it themselves, they'll buy it. And so just companies that are evolving with the market, especially in security, right? I mean, it's a bit of a cliche to say security is always changing, always evolving, but it is like a game of cat and mouse, right? Bad actors, the way I always talk about it with customers is, bad actors are all they're incented to stay ahead of the curve. If a bad actor no bad actor is going to send out a million phishing emails and know they have a 0% chance of success, right? If they had a 0% chance of success, why would they even bother doing it in the first place? And so they are literally incented to stay ahead of the curve. And so what that means is vendors are always having to play catch up. And so if I'm an MSP, I want to look at and try to identify the vendor that's as close to that catch up as they can be, because no one's ever going to be ahead of the curve. Certainly they'll be ahead of some bad actors, but they're not going to be ahead of the curve. Everyone's always playing catch up. Otherwise there wouldn't be breaches. There wouldn't be 0-day exploits. There wouldn't be anything. There wouldn't be a security industry at that point, because people have already got it figured out. So I think, from a product perspective, vendors and MSPs are looking for vendors that are as close to that curve as possible. They're mindful, kind of ear to the ground. What's kind of the next thing we need to be worried about, whether it's, deep fake AI generated videos of executives or what have you, right? Different types of social engineering that's happening. And ultimately something that's easy for them to use, right? From the distribution side, I think MSPs should be asking themselves, one, who's the easiest to work with, right? Vendors have a whole stack of technologies and companies they have to deal with, and it's only growing, right? And so if they really want to choose a distribution partner, I think a lot of it comes down to trust, right? And it's, who's available when I call them, right? Who's going to give me a quick response time? Who's going to give me an update even if they don't have the response I'm looking for, right? I think just watching kind of questions that are a little nebulous go into a black hole, MSP never hears back, or they don't even hear an update as to when they're going to get an update. So I think a lot of it comes down to trust, accountability. I think everyone is concerned about pricing, but I don't think in this space as much pricing is ultimately the big differentiator. It helps, but it's really who can you rely on? And I think that's where we've had customers who have been with us since 2002, 2003, wow. Right? And so to maintain relationships over the years, I think a lot of it's not the MSPs, but I think a lot of distributors really try to roll out the red carpet, in the first 6 months or the first year of a relationship, because again, that's hey, we really want to show you how great we are. But if that changes 6 months later or a year later, I don't think that's, the best. Nobody is in a good situation at that point. And so, not just that initial reputation, that initial engagement with a first sales rep, but just what is your engagement with the company as a whole? You might interact with their development team, with their support team, with different types of salespeople, with their leadership. And ultimately, I think it's a feeling you get of this is a company I can rely on, and they can complement what we're doing for our customers.
I'm a former MSP.
Yeah.
As you know, I talk to MSPs every day. The three things that keep them up at night, Kael, has been pretty consistent the last 5 or 6 years. Number one is cybersecurity. If their clients get attacked, it's a flat rate. They're going to have to allocate resources. They're probably going to get fired from them. They may even get sued, right? So it's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Two is human capital. Their technicians, if they leave, how they're going to replace them. Unemployment is very, very low, 1% in IT. It's how they're going to maintain them and keep them and possibly replace them. And then third is just general growth. PE has poured in hundreds of millions of dollars. Their friends are selling their MSPs and getting nice cars. How am I going to grow my MSP organically to be attractive? How do you help them?
That's a great question. So, where I think we sit, which again is it's a part of the overall MSP story, right? What we can do is help with the enablement and the education, right? I think when it comes to, retaining the MSP again, but just how do we help them grow is enablement, right? I don't expect our partners to know all of the ins and outs of what opportunities there are to upsell a customer, right? Especially in kind of the areas that we're helping them with, which is predominantly kind of email and domain security. So, I think a big thing that we pride ourselves on is how do we just help our partners and enable our partners to, have those conversations with customers which will allow them to grow. So, I mean, I'll give you kind of two examples. One is, partners that we onboard go through a fairly thorough just training from a sales perspective, right? Because their sales teams need to know what they're selling. They need to know how to rely on our team to work with us to just do that for them, right? And I think the other piece I was going to say was we do try to help partners with prospecting, right? Thankfully, email security, domain security, it's all public information that's available in DNS, right? What you do with that information can be quite interesting. And so we often work with a partner who, might have a prospect list of customers in their region that they want to target. They'll share some domain information with us. We've got years and years of tools that we'll use to run through our analytics, and we can help MSPs walk into a conversation with a customer with a lot more ammo, right? And so if you're an end customer, right, and an MSP comes in, you're a prospect for this MSP, and the MSP comes in with a full list of, hey, I see you have, 4 different domains that are public on the internet. 2 of these domains currently have issues with SPF. None of your domains currently have a DMARC record, which means bad actors can spoof you. I see you're using this security product, right? We work with a solution that can help with and compare against what you're using today, and give them an actual plan of, well, here's what I'm going to do to improve your domain security. We also have tools that then, can scrape the internet and help customers get visibility on where there might be lookalike domains or suspicious or misuse of their images or logos online, right? Because that's a huge thing businesses are dealing with is fake credential phishing pages, fake websites, or other just misuse or impersonation of their brand. And so, how we focus on helping an MSP grow is really just what ammo can we equip them with to walk into a conversation with a prospect or an existing customer to help them, ultimately sell them more. But it's not even about selling them more. It's about giving a customer a better experience, more security, and ultimately more visibility on where their gaps are, right? That's a big piece of kind of security awareness and education is you need to know where the gaps in your business are. And if you're an MSP that if you're a prospect and you've never met me as the MSP before and I come in with a whole laundry list of info, it makes the conversation a bit easier, and hopefully it lets them onboard a new customer, which I think is big on, obviously how an MSP grows.
So, I started my MSP in the 90s. I was working way too hard, not paying attention to myself, it's not eating properly, less exercise. Next thing I know, I'm at the doctor. She tells me I'm at 340 pounds. Huh. So I gained an incredible amount of weight. I was in my 20s. I knew I was heavier. Didn't know it was that much, though. She says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. Scared the life out of me. So I spent the next 6-7 months, lost about 120 pounds, and I kept it.
Oh, congrats.
You can't look at it as a finishing line, these things. These are lifelong changes.
Yeah.
So when I tell people the story, they always say, well, what's your secret? What you doing? There's no secret, Kael. Discipline.
Yeah.
Right? Just motivation, focus, routine. How does discipline play a role in your life?
So, discipline, it covers a ton of different things, obviously, right? And there's no one specific area that discipline really covers, right? If it comes to health, I look at discipline as mindfulness, right? It's are you actually taking a beat? Are you taking a step back, looking at what your life is, what your life has become? Especially since COVID, right? We used to have an office in Montreal. Everyone started working from home, and I can fall into a similar trap where, especially I live in the great white north of Canada, and if it's minus 30, minus 40 degrees, I could look up, I could put my head down Monday to start my day. I look up, it's Thursday, and I maybe have left the house once or twice. Wow. Right? And that's part of the double-edged sword of working from home, right? I love the flexibility, the lack of commute, but at the same time, if I'm not disciplined, if I'm not taking, a couple breaks kind of throughout the day to go just walk around the block, even if it means I have to put on my parka and my boots, not having discipline in that respect can really be challenging, right? And, ultimately you end up in a situation where you're starting to feel those health pains, right? That's where I just got my first Oura ring. And so I see that. So, trying to get into some wearables that, really just help me have a better grasp. I feel like the jury's still out on how accurate it all is. But if it can tell me, hey, your body's feeling stressed, or hey, your body hasn't moved in 4 or 5 hours, like at the very least, it's a reminder or an alert for me to go for a walk. And if I can build that into a day-to-day routine, if I can build that into a schedule, I look at that as discipline, right? I think discipline in the workplace is a bit different, right? For me, discipline's an interesting one in the workplace because I started at this company as a technical account executive, so direct contributor. Now I'm leading a sales team. And discipline for me, I want to, because I was that direct contributor, I want to have my fingers in all the pies, right? And I want to do as much as I can to help and support the team, right? But then there still needs to be the time to take a step back and look at a bigger picture of, well, how does the company scale? How does the company grow? And for me in the workplace, discipline comes down to trust, right? Trusting the people I'm hiring in sales, trusting that I don't need to solve a support ticket when I've got a great support team with me, trusting in, the leadership team that the decisions we're making, even if they ultimately aren't the right ones, they're ones that we've relied on each other to make the decision. We've tried it and we course correct if something doesn't work, right? And so discipline for work is for me a lot of trust. Certainly it's having a schedule, maintaining a routine, but I think when I look at discipline, it's been more about how do I trust those around me, and that allows me to focus on the parts of my job that I should be as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for your time today.
No, it's been great.
Really cool. Anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, great. So, my name, Kael Eisenberg. My email, very simple. My first name, Kael, Kael, at Vircom.com. Vircom, we're a Montreal-based email security company.
Yeah, you certainly are. I love Nadav. I love your team.
Yeah.
And of course, you're available on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Kael Eisenberg. You can find me there too.
Okay, thanks so much.
Awesome, Joey. Thank you.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with 1 or 2 of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.